Do you have any writing advice for emerging writers in the industry?
Yeah, allow yourself to be bad at it. Like, I think a lot of us sort of go in with like really, really good taste and not the skill set yet. And it's really, writing is really, really hard, and it doesn't matter what what level you are. Like, everybody struggles. And it's vulnerable and it's challenging, and so much of what you discover comes from those vomit drafts. So I would just encourage people to like let go and try to have fun and know that this is like a learned skill, and it's totally okay for that first draft to be a piece of shit because that's how it starts for all of us. And I think the more that you are comfortable with being bad at it, the more that you're just going to sort of fall into being good at it.
Over the years, my writer friends and I have had the chance to interview and get to know some amazing blockbuster screenwriters and TV writers, and I wanted to share some of the best writing advice they've shared with us. You can find these podcast episodes in full on my website at www.jordanimiola.com/podcast.
It's the Deadline Junkie Screenwriting Podcast with your hosts, Jordan Imiola, Kirsten Porter, and Rand Shami.
I love that advice. I always need to remember that advice. Well, and kind of to your point about like coming in with great taste, I think there's like an Ira Glass quote about how like your taste is usually, better than your ability. And so then that makes you unhappy. But the sort of flip side of that is it's very difficult to write something better than the best thing you can possibly imagine. So like having a good sense of taste that is like what you want, it sort of ultimately, it might make you feel like you're not achieving it in the moment, but it's ultimately the thing that's going to drag your progress forward. Assuming you keep writing, which would be my general advice, which is make sure you're actually writing. I feel like when I first moved to LA, I was like very convinced that I was writing a lot. And then I went on I think it was like the writing pad or something. I went to look for classes. I was like, I should take a class. Deadlines are helpful, as I assume the people who host the Deadline Junkies podcast are aware.
Thank you for promoting us.
Yes. And I was looking on their website, and there was some part of where you're supposed to sign up, and it was like, who should be taking these classes? And there was some like thing that was like, if you're not writing 10 hours a week, you're not a real writer, which I'm not saying it has to be that at all. But in that moment, I was like, I'm writing 10 hours a week. And then I started actually tracking it, and I would write like a little bit before I went to work, or like a little bit on an evening when my wife was like out with friends. And I did like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and they all came out to like 4.5 hours of writing. And I was like, oh shit, 10 hours is a lot of writing to squeeze in. And so that really helped me reframe my own commitment to it. Not just like I should be writing 10 hours, but like sit down, actually put words on the page, on some kind of page, whether it's a notebook or a computer screen or whatever, because it's so easy to like read an article about writing, or like research the topic of your story, or pace around coming up with ideas. And at the end of the day, I think I realized as I say this, I'm just backing into Alex's advice, which is like, just write and then don't worry about it.
Our boss likes to, our old boss on Dexter used to say, what was it? Perfection is the death of progress. It's, and I think that's so true. And I think, we can be super hard on ourselves. And I think the minute that you just sort of let go is when you figure it out.
Favorite writing advice or favorite writing books?
I think the best advice is just always look for motivation. No one should ever just be doing things because that's what they're supposed to do right now. It should always be like, always ask yourself, why are these people doing this? Why is this person's saying this line? Why is this person doing this? Why is this person leaving this scene at the moment? There should always be a reason for everything.
At first, I thought that was a much more existential answer, and you were saying, find our motivation to be writing. Why are we
no.
writing? No, character motivation. Got it.
Yeah.
What is your purpose in life?
That I can't help you with. That you're on your own.
Are there any books you'd recommend?
I really liked this book called it's called The War of Art. And it's kind of this like very motivational, but like in a kind of an ass kicking way of like, just like get over your shit and start writing, and like stop making excuses and stop, telling yourself you'll do it tomorrow, just do it. And I think I found that very helpful, because I think as writers, we like to procrastinate. And like, I always like to make excuses of like, oh, well, I had to get up early this morning and I'm kind of tired now, so I probably shouldn't have to write tonight. And, that's how you end up going 2 months without writing anything, is by making excuses for yourself. So yeah, it's The War of Arts is definitely a good kick in the ass if you're looking for one.
So you do a ton of TV writing, and you've written a novel and have another novel.
Yes.
So what's the difference between writing a novel and a TV show, basically?
Oh gosh, great question. Yeah, I've been lucky to get to write like TV and also features and novel and theater. And so I think all four of those lanes are very different, but there's like at the core, I sort of approach them all the same, which is, who is the character? Why do we care about them? What do they want? What is the obstacle to what they want? I think the themes are all usually similar for me in terms of why I get excited about a project, and then my process of actually writing. But it's sometimes you have to, like, I think there are certain times where I'll have an idea and I think, oh, this is going to be a feature. And then like there was something I'm working on right now that I thought I'm actually writing with a co-writer, and we had sort of been thinking about it as a feature, and we had almost started writing it as a feature. And then we were like, you know what, this should just be like a pilot. Like this really, like, this is a world that we'd want to live in for a longer time. And like, yes, there's a 90-minute version, but we would just so much rather get to do the 10-hour version, right? So in a perfect world, let's just write. And so sometimes I think the subject matter dictates the form. But I think, for me, I really like getting to jump. It's easier for me to work on multiple projects if they're in different mediums. Like, I think it's hard to work on multiple TV projects at once and we're kind of all in the same lane. But I actually like, it helps my brain to kind of switch from, complete sentences to more dialogue to, longer form. So I think that, there's inherent differences in terms of structure and, obviously format, but I think I just I approach all the writing the same way. So I think there's more similarities for me personally.
Nice. So with both Loki and Heels, how do you balance making a villain protagonist likable?
I think it's humanity, it's finding, it's what's relatable. It's when Loki is going through the processing at the TVA, waiting in line, being put through all this stuff. It's like suddenly he's doing things that all of us, even though we've never tried to take over Earth with an army of aliens, we have been through that. And we know what it's like to feel small under the boot of bureaucracy. And we know what it's like to feel unworthy under the shadow cast by our own family. And so I think it's just those moments of human relatability. The audience can connect to anything as long as they see themselves in it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. Do you have any routines, or like, what do you do to make yourself a stronger writer?
I read a lot. I read a lot of novels. I've been reading, in quarantine, just a ton of mystery novels. And because I've been, trying to work on a mystery show, a murder mystery. I want to say I have a routine, really. I don't do, writing exercises or anything like that. I do try to write every day, and I do just try to read all the time and to watch all the new stuff that's coming out. I don't, have a set, like, I'm not one of those, I sit down at my desk at 9 a.m. and I write for 2 hours and then I eat lunch, and I don't do that. Unless I'm like on a deadline. I'm more, I try to write every day, but it's not always at the same time. As long as it gets done, the routine doesn't quite matter as much to me.
I had a routines question. I'm going to cross that one out. My other one is, what are your deadlines like for Cobra Kai?
It depends, for this past season, like I had a week from the time we finished breaking the episode to turn in the first outline. And from there, I spent about 3 weeks, I think, probably on the first draft. But then the showrunners were just totally buried and didn't have time to read it. And I didn't end up like doing a rewrite until like a couple weeks later. And then there's a point where they needed another rewrite and I had like 3 days to do it. So it varies depending on production. If you're on a network show where they're doing 22 episodes a season, then you're going to have a very strict timeline. You're going to have maybe a week to churn out a first draft. Cobra Kai is not quite that strict. We have a little bit more time, but we also don't leave the room while we're on script. We stay in the room. And so you're writing on your own time. That's, it does vary a lot depending on where we are in the process.
My other piece of advice is don't put off on living your life until you make it. I think so many people put aside really important life things because they're waiting for like, well, once I'm a writer, or once I've made it, once I've sold my script. And I had started therapy finally when I was working on The Following as a story editor, which is like a second level. It was my second job on staff as a TV writer. It's like it meant that I was in, right? I survived my first year as a staff writer, and I was now into my second year as a real writer. And my career was looking promising. I was on Kevin Bacon show. And I realized like all of these things that I thought were going to like fall into place and like click into, the puzzle and make sense. Like my life was still a fucking mess, right? I was still like a sloppy idiot, and I still had a dissatisfying friend group, and I still had no romance. And all of this validation I thought I was going to get out of finally making it, like did not arrive in a beautiful, neatly wrapped package. And I had to like, really unpack why I'd spent most of my 20s putting off forming a big, fulfilling, beautiful life, thinking that like the missing piece was a writing career. And I think the people that I know who are the most successful and the happiest are people who work really hard to make sure their lives are big and beautiful, fulfilling, regardless of what they do, and whose lives get more so because they've made the jump into getting paid to write, which, look, I'm not going to lie, like it's great. It's great to have health insurance. It is great to get paid to write. My husband's a rocket scientist, and I walked by his office this morning and he's like literally trying to figure out how to keep people alive in outer space. I'm getting paid like 3 times more than him to like tell stories about, identical twins kidnapping each other. Like it's stupid, but I do think like, I know so many unhappy writers who just thought that getting paid to write or getting that first real gig was going to be the missing piece of their life. And it's just not. So I think like live your best life now. You're a writer if you're writing, right? If you are working on anything, whether it's just for yourself or whether it's for money, like you're a writer. So like there's no reason that the rest of your life shouldn't be going on too, and that you shouldn't be living your life as you think you should. So take that for what it's worth, or wait until you're staffed and then pay a lot of money for therapy. Worked for me.
Do you have any general advice that you would give to any up-and-comers in the industry or anyone who's trying to pursue a career really as a successful career person?
Well, as far as writing goes?
Yeah.
Writing, acting, pursuing, just any general advice you might have.
Yeah, like I said from the beginning, man, if you have the will, just go for it. The how will present itself. That's just always how I kind of live. I just kind of, I'm gonna do this, and if I'm dedicated to it, if I'm good at it, somehow it'll work out. You know, I don't know how I'm gonna meet Steven Spielberg, but I feel like somehow maybe he's gonna reel in me one day, and then as we exchange insurance cards, be like, yeah, I'm gonna have to, what? You know. But I feel like if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, you're gonna get a shot. You're gonna get a shot. Now, what that shot turns into, I don't know, but you will get a shot. We all gonna get up at bat. I would just tell anybody that's trying to do anything, give it your all, focus on it, you know, don't half-ass it, and put it out into the universe. You know, that whether that be writing, acting, whatever, especially
Or military.
Yeah, join the military, you know, and be successful at that. Like my friend is very successful in the military, you know. So I just feel like, especially for entertainment nowadays, you don't even really need Hollywood anymore, man. Everybody's just doing their own thing. So you don't have to wait for Hollywood to come save you and give you these opportunities. You can create your own opportunities.
For sure.
Like what you guys are doing right now. We have this podcast. Like you don't need to be on a radio station. You know,
No,
like
no.
you can just do your own thing. If you really believe in it, you can just go do your own thing. And guess what? And when it pops, Hollywood will find you. They will come.
That's
They
like,
will be like, oh, we need a piece of this.
that's like the Steve Martin saying that's like, be good enough, they can't ignore you.
Yeah, they will, because they're like, we can't let them keep all this money to themselves. Let's, you know, yeah.
Totally.
I mean, they gave Joe Rogan $100 million for a reason.
You can find these podcast episodes in full on my website at www.jordanemiola.com/podcast. Please subscribe for more tips, tricks, and advice on writing.